Urgent. Not everyone is ready for this, but Mike Tomlin could say goodbye to the Steelers at any moment. Leave your like, subscribe, and let's get to the news. Mike Tomlin, the long-tenured head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, remains one of the most recognizable and respected figures in the NFL coaching landscape, not only because of his longevity but also because of the stability he brought to the franchise for nearly 2 decades. Since taking over the Steelers in 2007, he has crafted a legacy rooted in discipline, structure, and a culture of grit that defines some of the most successful eras of Steelers football in the modern age. His resume includes a Super Bowl championship, multiple postseason appearances, and, a point often highlighted by his supporters, 0 losing seasons over his entire career. For years, Tomlin symbolized consistency in a league where coaching jobs are often precarious and short-lived. But as the 2025 season enters its final stretch, even the most loyal members of Steelers Nation are beginning to ask hard questions about whether that consistency has become a form of stagnation. While Tomlin's past accomplishments are undeniable, the current iteration of the Steelers looks lost, aging, and directionless, and the once unshakable foundation beneath him is now showing major cracks. The Steelers organization has always prided itself on stability, having employed only 3 head coaches since 1969, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. That kind of continuity is unheard of in the modern NFL. But continuity alone does not translate to innovation, and the current state of the roster, combined with a string of unremarkable seasons, has led many analysts and fans to argue that the Steelers are clinging to stability at the expense of progress. Pittsburgh currently sits at 6-5, a record that epitomizes the uninspiring, middle-of-the-pack performance that has defined the franchise for several recent seasons. Gone are the days when the Steelers were annual Super Bowl contenders. Now, the team hovers around mediocrity, occasionally flashing potential but far more often showcasing inconsistency and a troubling inability to compete with the league's elite teams. They have not advanced past the wild card round since the 2017 season, an increasingly distant memory overshadowed by years of offensive struggles, defensive regression, and questionable personnel decisions. The retirement of Ben Roethlisberger marked a turning point for the franchise. What followed were years of quarterback instability, an identity crisis, and failed experiments. Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, each represented an opportunity to forge a new offensive direction, yet each experiment collapsed under the weight of ineffective scheming, inconsistent play, or poor development. In 2025, the Steelers finally made what seemed like a bold move by acquiring 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who, while certainly not the long-term answer, brought with him experience and poise that Pittsburgh's offense desperately needed. For a moment, it appeared that Rodgers' arrival would spark a resurgence. But injuries, age, and limited mobility have hampered the veteran quarterback, and his production, 1,969 passing yards so far this season, hardly resembles the MVP-caliber numbers he once put up during his prime. Though Rodgers is arguably the best quarterback the Steelers have fielded since Roethlisberger, his presence underscores the organization's failure to secure a future at the most crucial position in football. The roster construction has also raised eyebrows. The offseason acquisition of DK Metcalf initially generated buzz, as fans hoped pairing him with George Pickens would create one of the most dynamic receiving duos in the league. But in a baffling move, Pittsburgh traded Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys shortly after securing Metcalf. Pickens has thrived in Dallas, emerging as one of the top receivers in the league and currently ranking second in receiving yards. For many Steelers fans, watching Pickens dominate elsewhere feels like a painful reminder of the franchise's declining ability to maximize its own talent. Meanwhile, the Steelers' running back group remains painfully average, lacking explosiveness and consistency. Najee Harris has shown flashes but continues to struggle with inefficiency, while Jaylen Warren, once viewed as a potential breakout star, has hit a plateau behind a deteriorating offensive line. The unit that once set the tone for Pittsburgh's physical identity is now a shell of its former self, struggling to control the line of scrimmage and failing to provide the offense with any semblance of balance. Defensively, the Steelers are no longer the powerhouse they once were. The proud tradition of hard-hitting, suffocating defense has eroded as key players' age and depth continues to falter. TJ Watt, once the most feared edge rusher in football, is no longer the dominant force he was earlier in his career. Injuries and accumulated wear have slowed him, and while he remains productive, the drop-off is evident. Jalen Ramsey, acquired to bolster the secondary, is showing his age as well, and Cameron Hayward, one of the emotional leaders of the defense for years, is battling physical decline after a series of taxing seasons. The Steelers used to win games with defense, even when the offense sputtered. That formula no longer works, as the defense no longer has the ability to bail out the team week after week. The regression has been glaring, and opponents who once feared facing Pittsburgh now see vulnerabilities across all levels of the defense. Special teams, supposedly a strength under Tomlin, who built his early reputation as a special teams coordinator, have shockingly become another area of weakness. Missed field goals, poor punt coverage, and questionable decision-making have contributed to multiple momentum swings throughout the season. For fans who have long praised Tomlin's attention to detail, this collapse in the third phase of the game feels particularly symbolic of the broader organizational decline. But beyond the on-field issues, a growing number of fans and analysts are frustrated with Tomlin's communication style. His post-game interviews, once seen as confident and composed, are now being criticized for vagueness, lack of accountability, and an unwillingness to address obvious problems. His infamous phrases, "We accept responsibility, we own it, the standard is the standard," have become memes within the fan base, used mockingly whenever the Steelers fail to meet expectations. At one time, those phrases embodied the Steelers' rugged identity. Now, they come across as recycled sound bites lacking substance. A team that once commanded fear and respect is now stuck in a cycle of mediocrity, hovering just above average but never breaking through into true contention. The AFC North, once widely considered one of the toughest divisions in football, is now ironically one of the weakest in 2025, and yet the Steelers still struggle to separate themselves from their rivals. Missing the postseason yet again, in a year where the path should have been considerably easier, would only pour gasoline on the already scorching hot seat under Tomlin. As Pittsburgh approaches what feels like a crossroads, internal and external voices are calling for a new era, a reboot, a fresh identity, and a redefined vision for the future. It's not just about X's and O's. It's about reestablishing standards, revamping player development, embracing modern offensive philosophies, and constructing a roster that is built for long-term success rather than temporary patchwork solutions. While Tomlin's legacy in Pittsburgh is unquestionable, he is unquestionably one of the best coaches of the 21st century and arguably belongs in the conversation of all-time greats. Legacy alone cannot justify maintaining the status quo. The franchise has too much history, too much pride, and too passionate a fan base to settle for merely being good enough. Unless something dramatically changes during the remainder of the 2025 season, the uncomfortable truth is becoming harder to ignore. The Pittsburgh Steelers likely need to move on from Mike Tomlin. Not because he has failed as a coach, but because his time, his vision, and his methods no longer align with where the franchise must go. The NFL is a league defined by innovation, adaptability, and evolution. And in 2025, the unfortunate reality is that Tomlin no longer brings anything particularly special to the table in terms of scheme, strategy, or forward-thinking leadership. It is a painful realization for an organization built on loyalty, but sometimes the hardest decisions are the most necessary. For the Steelers to truly begin a new era, Tomlin's departure may need to be the first step. Comment if you think Mike Tomlin's time as Steelers coach is over. Thanks for watching and see you soon.